Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and it's time for part 2 of the Monday Q&A, so let's knock this out. First question. I am planning to start your 5x5 training in the new year after moving into my own place, so I have space for weights and equipment. I've been lifting on and off for the last year. Do you have any advice on things I can do in the run-up to starting the program, which do not require weights or equipment? Many thanks. Sure, if you're someone who's relatively untrained, which if you've been off and on, you could be back in an untrained state again real fast. Just body weight movements. You could do body weight squats. You could do squats with just a backpack on. Get your girlfriend to ride on your back, piggyback, or sit on your shoulders. You could do push-ups. You could do pull-ups. You could find a way to do bench dips on your stairs or between a couple of chairs. You can do all those exercises. You can do core work. You can do some weighted crunches with whatever objects you can find. You could run some programs like DeFranco's Agile 8 in order to get a little more mobility before you go into the program. All of that stuff will help get you into better shape so that you'll ease into the program better. So things like that is what I would recommend for you. So give it a go. All right, next question. Jason, it seems that we are at the peak of the YouTube fitness renaissance, with YouTubers able to profit from their content coupled with the oversaturation of channels. Where do you see the YouTube fitness going from here? How do you think it will end? When do you think it will end? It won't end until YouTube is gone. Fitness is a big topic. It's not the highest paying topic on YouTube. And this isn't even my long-term gig. I will probably keep a fitness channel open for fitness topics as long as YouTube is around and doing the partnership programs. I'll probably still be doing it, but it won't be my main focus on YouTube forever. Now, as far as the success of it, the oversaturation of it, you are right. People who haven't already bought in now and haven't already built up a channel, like if by today, these days, if you don't have over 10 or 20,000 subscribers already, with the oversaturation that's coming, odds are you're not going to be successful at this. The only people who are going to be successful at this are someone who has a unique approach, who comes in and manages to get successful rapid growth, or several of the well-established larger channels. I'll give them multiple shout-outs. That's going to be the only way they're going to make it at this point because of the oversaturation. Which also goes to the point of, if you're expecting a channel to only cover fitness and never deviate from just giving fitness advice and information and don't do anything else to get more views or something that they do, you're actually hoping that that channel fails. You're dooming that channel to failure, because with the oversaturation of channels, just giving good information is unfortunately no longer enough. And if you want proof of that, you could take someone like the Bearded Beast of Duloc, who he's a pro of mine, friend of mine. He has a channel still. I think he still has under 10,000 subscribers after a couple years. He has one of the most informative channels on YouTube, but because he does nothing but give good information, he has 5% of the subscribers he should have. And until he does something else more to get more outreach, he is simply never going to have a big base. That isn't enough in the current saturated market to do that. So if someone has good information to put out, they're going to have to find a way to draw in an audience, unique ways to draw in an audience. So a lot of that is things that I've done as an example, but that's my own unique style. Other people are going to have to do stuff their own way, or their information is simply not going to get out. The nature of the market and the oversaturation of it requires people to do more now than just have good information. Particularly when with so much bad information out there, with people who just look fantastic and have been marketed well, have gotten really big, that has made it very, very difficult now for anyone whose main marketing tactic in YouTube fitness is going to be good information. That's killed it for that market. People are not going to be successful that way any longer. So that's what's going on with it, and it probably won't ever end. It's just that there is a saturation issue, and there is serious competition for those views and those subscribers today. So there's only so many routes that someone can take. They've either got to be heavily supported and shouted out by the bigger channels, or they have to have a unique approach and a way to get attention drawn in, or they will fail purely due to the oversaturation of the market now. And again, that's another reason this won't be the only thing I even do through YouTube in the long term, which people who watch the Ask Jason channel already know what I'm going to change to later. All right, next question. Jason, could you address this whole the paleo diet reduces disease risk by eliminating grains that cause inflammation BS? Thanks. I'm not really sure how to address it other than to say it's nonsense. Now, is it possible that sure people are getting omega-3 deficiencies because they're not getting any omega-3 fats because they're eating exclusively refined grains and they're not getting enough greens, they're not getting a fish oil supplement or anything like that? Sure. Is it the grains themselves causing it? No. And as far as this inflammation issue, as far as the inflammatory and anti-inflammatory prostaglandins produced from these various types of fatty acids has been overhyped. It isn't as strong, or does it even work the way that it's been marketed by the diet book industry to work? And in fact, even from an inflammation perspective, the paleo diet would be just as inflammatory as a very high grain diet would be, because saturated fats are in many ways just as inflammatory gram per gram as most omega-6 fats, which is a concern in grains. And not all grains are even high in omega-6. They have trace amounts. Things like rice. So people are thinking of things like oats would be a leading example of something that's relatively high in omega-6. But the paleo diet will then promote people eat a bunch of saturated fat, which is just as inflammatory. So they're not really fixing that issue either. And the real issue there is dietary imbalance. And nutritional deficiencies are the actual issue, not this massive inflammation response going on as a result of it. It's marketing hype. It's gimmicks to sell diet books. It's not necessarily grounded in reality or in human biology. All right, next question. Hey Jason, is the deadlift a good quad builder? Rippetoe explains that the quads perform the beginning of the deadlift. That is true. Get the weight off the floor, then the hamstrings, glutes, abductors finish the movement and lock the weight out. From this, I'm curious, can one build quads apiece from deadlifting alone? Thanks. If you did sumo deadlifts, you'd probably build a bit more quad than conventional deadlifts. However, is either one really enough to build quads apiece and prosperity? Probably not. You're still going to probably want a squat of some type in there, ideally. It just simply isn't enough total tension. And I'm not saying you can't build some quads. If you go in and you deadlift, you start as a rank novice and you get up to where you can rep 4 plates of sides, which is about 400 pounds for a few reps on the deadlift of either style of deadlift, whether it's conventional or sumo, your quads are going to get bigger. It will definitely stimulate some growth, but is it going to be anywhere near the potential of growth you could have if you were doing squats also and you added 300 pounds to your squat? No. It's not going to be as much. It's only going to be a fraction of what you could build. So it's a case of, yes, the deadlift builds a lot of muscles, tons of muscles that it helps facilitate the growth in. Is the deadlift alone enough to build a lot of these muscles up? If that's the only exercise you're using, probably not. It's probably not adequate to really get the type of development you probably want to get really good development, or as you put it, quads apiece. Although it will contribute and it will help in the overall grand scheme of things, absolutely. All right, next question. People who are huge but still move lightweight, like 80 kilograms on the bench press, is it safe to assume they are on steroids? Edit, I know it's not a direct cause and you have to train right, even on roids, but what else could it be? This is something I hear about on the internet. I haven't really met these people. And I mean that literally. I've seen a lot of guys who are big who don't have a heavy squat or deadlift because they don't do squats or deadlifts. And oftentimes when you look at them, they don't have massive hamstrings or big glutes or big erectors. And oftentimes they don't even have big quads. But they still have a heavy bench press. Like most of the guys that I think of as just gym rats who train for a fluff and pump, who I've seen over the years still bench press close to 300 pounds, 130, 140 kilos for a couple reps. The majority I've seen do that, whether they were natty or enhanced. I don't know who these people are you're talking about. Now, I've seen guys who look, when you see, if you just saw a picture, you saw them on a video, who lift these kind of things and they do sets of 10 or 12 reps with 80 kilogram bench press. They look really good. So you're thinking they're huge, but they're really, really tiny. But they look good in isolation. But if you stand them next to someone like me, and I've got a friend like that, I have a friend like that personally, who is like that. The guy is ripped. I don't think I've ever seen him over 9% body fat. The guy's diet is absurdly strict year round. Like he is a guy who you don't even mention if it fits your macros. He doesn't eat table sugar ever, and he stays ripped. But he isn't big and he isn't strong, but he is very ripped. And so if you were to see him just with his shirt off in a video with nothing for comparison, you would think he was pretty big. But you stand him next to me in person and he looks like a child. He looks like a little toothpick next to me. You know, his arms are literally half the size of mine. His chest thickness is maybe from front to back less than half of what mine is. But if you just saw him walking down the street with his shirt off, he might look big because he is ripped. The guy is ripped and he's very proportionate and he looks fantastic, but he's not big. So that might be what you're thinking of here. The exception might be, of course, yeah, there are a few that probably is drugs and they're just got good genetics. They're on a lot of drugs. They do a fluff and pump like that. But I don't personally, that's an internet phenomenon. I haven't really seen these people in person to any degree, other than the guys who are just really ripped and proportionate, who you're mistaking for being big. All right, next question. What is the difference in training style / enhancement that creates such a large difference in hypertrophy of sprinters versus marathon runners? Perhaps discussing energy output and how it affects performance, blah, blah, blah. And whether this info is relevant to the average powerlifter / recreational lifter. And he included a marathon runner next to a sprinter, which I will put here for you guys. All right, here's the problem whenever people do these side-by-side comparisons. Here's the difference. It's not the sprinting versus the marathon running. The guy on the right, let's just get right off the bat. He has far more fast twitch muscle fibers. He's fast twitch muscle fiber dominant, or he wouldn't be a top-level sprinter. Fast twitch fibers have more potential for hypertrophy. In other words, he is genetically superior for gaining muscle mass, very genetically superior for gaining muscle mass to the other guy. Number two, the overwhelming majority of top sprinters and successful sprinters in the world do heavy weightlifting. That puts a lot of hypertrophy on them, makes them better sprinters. Number three, the amount of legitimately drug-free top-level athletes in the world are so rare as to be statistically insignificant. And it's ironic that the individual that you posted the picture of wasn't even smart enough to pass his drug test. He's got popped for anabolics on a drug test. So you combine all the testosterone and growth hormone that they use with the fact that they've got elite genetics for fast twitch muscle fibers. They lift weights. They use testosterone and growth hormone. So when you factor that in, does it come as any surprise that they carry a tremendously more muscular and more heavily muscled physique than the marathon runner? Those are the factors. It's not the fact that one of them sprints versus the other one's a marathon runner. And you factor in the diet aspect of it. Most marathon runners intentionally keep their body weight low by restricting their diet. And I don't mean that they don't eat. I mean that they keep their total energy input versus output low enough that they don't gain a lot of weight, or they would all be fat also. They keep their body weight light, which doesn't give them room to gain much in the way of muscle or fat, because they want to be lighter so that they're more efficient in terms of their endurance. So that's the factor then on their end, is the dietary and the total calorie intake side of it. So those are your factors. It's not the actual type of cardio that they do that is determining this. So those are the actual factors there. It really and truly isn't the type of cardio that they're doing as the primary factor. And even though it's been used as an example over and over, it's not true. All right, next question. Tips or tricks to reduce or stop water weight from antibiotics / steroids, etc. from prescribed by doctors. Sorry, brother, antibiotics, I can't help you, but if you're being prescribed steroids for some sort of muscle wasting, HIV, certain types of cancers, or just TRT, a lot of them will make you more prone to bloating. But that prone to bloating is, one, due to elevated estrogen levels, which can be controlled by monitoring your blood work, seeing where your E2 is, having your doctor prescribe you a low dose of an AI to get that under control. Number two, realize that you are more, oftentimes, not everyone, there are definitely a lot of people who aren't prone to this. Those genetically lucky they don't have to deal with this to the same degree, but oftentimes people who have elevated androgen levels are more sensitive to things like aldosterone, your water retention hormones. If that's the case, like me, and you care about the water weight, and I only care about it when it comes time for meets, which you guys see how fast I drop water weight. It's all about your carb and your sodium intake. If you're very sensitive to that aldosterone levels, you got to keep the sodium in check, and you probably need to keep the carb scaled back just a little bit. Because surplus carbs are going to bloat you from water, surplus sodium is going to bloat you. I can put on easily 10 pounds of water weight that way anytime I choose to. And I can drop it off anytime I want. Also, again, within 2 days, as you guys have seen when I do powerlifting meets and weigh-ins. It's a matter of manipulating your diet to achieve that end. And you just have to deal with that if you're more sensitive to those things. And you'll find out real fast if you are, as soon as you go on that prescription. All right, next question and last question of the week. I have friends and coworkers claiming that they feel better when going vegan. Is it placebo? In some cases, it probably is. Anytime people do this, I saw a friend who did this. He said, I cleaned up my diet and I took the junk food out and I feel fantastic. The best I've ever felt. And I watched him cooking a meal and eating it, and his idea of eating a clean diet, he was taking Chapel Hill sausage, which, actually tastes pretty fantastic. Anyone from Texas knows that. But it's just ground up high-fat pork full of saturated fat with sodium nitrate all in it, combined with ramen noodles. He was making a soup with ramen noodles and sausage, and because he was putting a little bit of spinach in there, he thought he was eating clean, and all he talked about was just how much better he had felt since he had been eating that way for the last week and had really cleaned his diet up. It's placebo. Because those foods, eaten in the quantities that he was eating them in, but he had scaled back his total calories a little bit. He was counting his calories. So he had lost like 2 pounds already that week also. But the thing was, those foods were certainly, any of the fad diets that people follow out there don't beat anyone's diet in that combination. But he felt better. So the placebo aspect is part of it. And the other thing to consider is, if their diet is truly horrific and deficient and they're eating foods that they maybe had mild intolerances to, or again, they're sensitive to things like aldosterone and they were eating large amounts of sodium, or they're lactose intolerant and they had dairy in their diet, any of these things, and they've cut out those things that are causing them issues, they are going to feel better. Is it the fact that they chose a vegan diet or a paleo diet or an Atkins diet or a South Beach diet or whatever it is that they chose? Is it that specific diet that caused it, or is it that they cut out that one food source that makes them personally, due to their own biochemistry and dietary intolerances, makes them feel bad? No, it's the latter. It's that one food that they probably have removed or moderated. So that's usually what it comes down to, is one of those two factors. Alright guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it has been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time. But let me give you guys a bicep shot before I go. Oh, Mount Vesuvius.